to Suits and Sneakers, a series featuring sage advice and candid conversations with seasoned leaders from diverse backgrounds and styles. I'm your host, Carrie Tuttle. With my guests, we deep dive into the areas of team engagement, motivation, and effective performance management. Get ready to be inspired and transform your approach to leadership. Please like, subscribe, or follow to be notified when episodes are released. Let's get started. My guest today is Enrique Dubon-Roberts, partner, lawyer, and mediator with BDL Family Law, LLP. Enrique has over 18 years of experience helping clients navigate family law disputes with clarity and confidence. Before becoming a lawyer, he was a high school teacher, an experience that still shapes his approach to his legal practice today, both with clients and with his team. Whether guiding clients through the legal process or advocating in court, Enrique brings the heart of a teacher to everything he does. Born in El Salvador and raised in Calgary, Enrique earned a Bachelor of Arts in English with distinction and a Bachelor of Education in Secondary English Literature in 1999, followed by a law degree in 2007. Phew, that's a lot, all from University of Calgary. Outside of work, he enjoys spending time with his family, walking his dogs, and fun fact, Enrique has been to Puerto Vallarta at least 15 times. Enrique, bienvenido a Suits and Sneakers.
Gracias, Carrie.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here. So if you could give us a bit of background on how you went from being a lawyer to now owning or co-owning your own firm.
It's a bit of a long, windy road, Carrie, but it's certainly not what I set out to do. I always wanted to be a lawyer. I mean, since I was a teenager, that was a dream of mine. I became a teacher and chose my program of studies very carefully because I thought it would prepare me for the LSATs, which would then prepare me for law school. Right? I thought an English degree would be my way into law school, being that English is not my first language. But I just wanted to work as a lawyer. As lawyers, we are able to work as associates or employees of law firms. And I was an employee for many, many years and enjoyed it, right? It meant that I could close my door, deal with my clients, deal with the law, which is what my passion is, and then go home and not have to worry about any of the extras, right? And now, it came to a point where it became very clear that, my sort of view of my career and how I wanted to have control over the people that I work with and my team, just it wasn't working without the leadership role, right? And so slowly but surely, I came to realize that the way to have a higher impact on the people that I work with was to become a partner at a law firm. And so with that in mind, I set out to find a home. And I was very lucky to have an excellent partner, who is my ride or die. And so she is the L in the name of my law firm. And we both started shopping around as a duo, as a team, and found a little boutique family firm where we landed for our first sort of stint as partners and owners of a law firm. And we had a big learning curve and school of, gentle teaching by some great mentors. And then it came time for us to open our own firm. And so we've been open for about, I guess, almost 2 months now. It has been 2 months now. And we have a wonderful staff and there's still things that aren't quite where we want them to be, but it's a growing sort of labor of love.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know when you talked about sort of designing how you want to work, you needed to be in leadership because you have a very clear vision for the culture of the firm that you want to create. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I am not of the view that, there's a lot of talk about workplaces being like families, and that we're not. And in the best of ways, right? We see each other every day. We work closely with each other, but we all have lives outside of our offices, right? And so we want to make sure that the people that we work with are happy working with us, that they are doing excellent work, that they feel supported and mentored, that they feel like they're being compensated properly, which is very important to me. But at the end of the day, that they feel like they can go home and enjoy their lives, right? Without having to worry about office politics or where their next raise is coming from or, anything like that. Our idea was to create a team of people who want to do good work, who want to be at their office, but at the end of the day, want to go home and enjoy their life.
Mm. So you don't have that culture where you hear about that on TV, like even Suits, right? Like that show, they're there till 10 p.m. or, they're working all weekend. And so it sounds like you're not interested in creating a culture like that.
No, and that happens. That absolutely happens sometimes. We are a service industry, and sometimes we have to work till 10 p.m., and sometimes we have to work on the weekends, and we do it, and we get paid very well as lawyers to do that. But that's not the goal. The goal is to do work that allows, or that doesn't allow, rather, for emergencies to come up that often. We teach our lawyers to be proactive, to be thinking about the next steps so that you don't have to be at the office at 10 p.m. so that you can finish your work by, a sensible 4:30, 5 p.m. and not have to work the weekends, right? And so that is part of the mentorship that we give our young lawyers is how do you best serve your clients? How do you best provide a service that allows people to get to closure, right? And I mean, for context, and I know that that sort of came out on a little bit at the beginning here, but we are a full service divorce law firm, right? That is all we do. It's family law, which means that the clients that we deal with are going through what's likely one of the most difficult times in their lives, and we also do some prenups and postnups, which are less stressful, but they're still, going to impact people's life on a permanent basis. And so we take our work very seriously and we don't want to create a culture where people have to work till 10 p.m. because we don't believe that that would serve our clients.
Mm-hmm. And what else would you sort of use to describe your culture and what you've created? Because I know you have a new office and you put some intention into how you design the office as well.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I'm most proud of in my new space is our beautiful lunchroom, and the idea is to have a space where we can gather and where we can enjoy a meal together or have a meeting. Most of our management meetings, not that we have many, but they happen on comfy couches with a warm cup of coffee, or people are coming in and out of the lunchroom as we're having these conversations because we want them to be involved in the process, right? And it's built, or my hope is that building an office around a beautiful space that allows people to come in and disconnect from their work is going to allow us to go back recharged to our desks. And it's happening. It's happening slowly. It's only been 8 weeks and there's been a lot of work to get things set up. But we have had a few gatherings, but everybody stops, sits down, and just has a bite together. And it's not everyone every day, but there's somebody there almost every day. The other piece is we have built for boardrooms and meeting spaces in a way that allows for our next step in our sort of vision, which is mediation. We want to help people come up with solutions that don't require the core system. So we have a lot of beautiful boardrooms and breakout spaces that will allow us to hopefully offer that service to the community. We have one lawyer who has a very strong mediation practice, and I believe she's now at 80% of everything she does is helping people resolve their problems by sitting at a boardroom table rather than going into a courtroom. And so that is the vision: is to create a space that has the room for those practices to grow.
Well, what a beautiful vision because, it's the hardest, probably one of the hardest times of people's lives to uncouple themselves. And so if you can find a way to do that in a way that's kind and compassionate and trying to find win-win rather than adversarial and putting your hands and your future into someone else's decision making, then I think that's a great vision. Yeah. How many employees do you have in your firm?
So we currently have 4 lawyers. We have been very lucky to have attracted a lot of talent. So we have a fifth lawyer starting in a few weeks.
Hmm.
We also have 4 amazing legal assistants. And again, without advertising or doing any recruiting, we're being approached by great talent. And so we've had another assistant join us to sort of support the two lawyers that have started since we have opened. And no, it's been a blessing to see people wanting to be a part of this exciting new venture. And we are being approached by other lawyers. And growth is it's funny because we don't want to grow too fast. It has to be organic. It has to be the right people. But also when the right people do come, we have the space.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. How would your team describe your leadership style?
Well, I think a version of what my leadership style is that I will gently convince them uh, that my idea is their idea,
Okay.
and that they will come out of a meeting thinking that they have agreed or that they came up with this great project for themselves when I convince them to do it themselves. But no, I think, I do believe in sort of a gentle approach to management, right? I trust my team. I think that they're all strong professional adults that don't need oversight. They do their job. They're very proud of the work that they do. And we have surrounded ourselves with people who want to do good work, who are concerned about their clients and concerned about the outcomes of their lives because we're not dealing with files, we're dealing with people, with people's livelihoods, with people's lives, where their children are going to sleep. And having a team that understands that means that we don't have to lead them in a way that requires a strong hand, right? They know what they have to do and they do it. Our leadership is gentle because we're here to support them. We're here to provide them with, mentoring on the law or how to deal with difficult circumstances, right? And so, I think they would describe it as gentle leadership if there's such a thing. Yeah, and that's my style.
How do you and your partner balance each other's leadership styles?
Well, and I think I was very purposeful in saying that is my style and not my partner's style. My partner has a very different approach to leadership. She's a very direct, very strong leader. And so when it comes to her style being more direct and my being more sort of gentle, self guided, we often find that somewhere in the middle is the right combination. And we haven't had to face many challenges at our new firm in terms of that piece, but I think having sort of like this very sort of some would say opposed styles to leadership while having the same vision and having the same goals really has helped us to sort of shape up an office that meets what we both want, right? A place where people are happy, and I think that's where the gentle sort of approach really does kick in, but a place where people are doing good work, right? And that's what I think sometimes the directness helps, right? Not that we had to use that yet, but it's there. And I think our employees know that, right? I think that they know that our expectations are clear,
Hmm.
the targets are clear, that the expectation that they will be present, help their clients, and come for help when they need it. It's part of what we all do.
Yeah. And maybe it's before your current firm, but have you ever been caught off guard by someone's behavior or something that you had to deal with as a leader?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a lawyer for over 18 years, and in all of the law firms that I've sort of worked at, I think I have been the teacher, or as some describe it, the mother hen. I often find myself mentoring the young lawyers, right? Offering help, educating. And so, the challenges that brings is that sometimes young lawyers want to be fed answers rather than be taught how to do law. And that manifests itself in different ways, right? But what I've learned is that, good lawyers come to me with the research done, with options on what the next steps are. All I have to do is confirm that their course of action is the right one, right? And that course B and C are good, but are not the best options. And then there's lawyers who come to me and just want to be fed the answer. Literally have said, I don't want to read the case. Can you just tell me what it says? Right. And what I've learned is that, look, they can be very effective lawyers too, but that is not the type of lawyer that I want to work with. I want to work with lawyers who are willing to learn how to do our job because the law is a lot like a craft more than it is you know, a profession, right? Somebody, you have to get your hands dirty. You have to read the cases. You have to read the law. You need to live it to do it well. What I learned is that I have often put resources into places where I shouldn't have, or into people whose vision of their careers doesn't align with mine. And so what I learned is that often you just need to cut the line sooner, right?
Mm.
There's something about wasting limited resources, and I am not afraid to. I have learned not to be afraid to say this won't work. This mentoring relationship is not going to work because you're not bringing to the table what I need you to bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And that has manifested itself both as a when I was an associate lawyer, and I wasn't necessarily their bosses, right? But it's certainly something that I have brought into the firms where I have been a lawyer myself, right? Whether it's an employee, a lawyer, or an assistant, just letting go fast of somebody who just doesn't align with your vision.
Hmm. Well, and I would say what you're describing is similar in probably all different areas of business, in that you have employees who are super motivated, take initiative, they do the research, and they come to you not just with the problem, but with some solution options or even a clear recommendation. And they're really just looking for like confirmation. Am I going to mess this up? Am I on the right track? Or are you okay with this? And then you have other people who are not okay with ambiguity and therefore need you to kind of put the steps in front of them. And those employees, although they can be trained, it takes a lot more time and energy. So you have to be really thoughtful as a leader as to where do you want to put your mentorship energy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I have had these conversations with employees where it's not personal. It's not that their work isn't good. It's just that we have limited resources, right? Especially running a business, and being a single dad and having an entire caseload of my own, right? The resources are limited, right? So being focused on where the work goes and where the energy goes is important.
Definitely. So you talked a little bit about, you being the mother hen or like teaching people. How else does your teaching background influence how you lead your team?
I mean, when you walk into a room of 35, 14-year-old hormonal grade niners, right? I mean, if you can get through there with that, nothing else scares you, right? But I think it's that sort of hyper awareness of sensing where the trouble spots are in the classroom. And I think after 5 years of teaching, I knew, which kids needed my attention that day, right? Which ones were overstimulated, which ones were happy, which ones were sad, and it was just, and my classroom was set up in a way that I could, it was a circle more or less, and I could walk around the entire room, and I could touch base with those people or those kids and sort of address whatever it was, whether it was a concern about them being unhappy that day or because they were over energized. I could do that in my circular shaped classroom, right? And I think that is sort of how I approach my morning, right? It takes me 40 minutes to get my coffee, not because it takes that long to make a cup of coffee, but because I want to sense how the office is, right? I want to get a sense of how people's weekends were, how stressed they are about their cases, what it is that's worrying them, whether it's their kids or their caseload. And for me, that sort of social awareness, that social intelligence awareness of what's going on with the people around me is, it comes from my teaching background, right? If I didn't read the room in my classroom, that lesson was not going to land, right?
Hmm.
If on a Monday morning I don't read the law firm, then we may not be as effective as we want to be. So, that 20 minutes, 30 minutes that it takes me to get my first cup of coffee means that there's productivity for the rest of the week. It means that I know where to focus my energy in terms of my HR efforts or my legal research efforts. Or it's important for me to have those points of connection with the people that are around me.
Hmm.
And I think that does come from being, like I said, in a room full of kids who are going through all kinds of things. right? I was always amazed at the information that I got about people's homes from their children. Kids
Mm.
talk to their teachers far more than we think that they do, and sometimes far more than we wish that they do. Right? And so I knew what was going on in my students' lives, right? And it's very similar here.
Yeah. What's a hard leadership lesson that you've had to learn?
I mean, I think, and it's a hard lesson, but it has been softened by the fact that I have a partner who's better than me at saying no. But just learning to say no or not right now, right? One of my personal philosophies is that there's money to be made by everyone, right? The law firms that I worked at as an employee, without naming names, and I've been to many, so I'm not pointing fingers at any particular one, but one of the mistakes or one of the reasons that I left, I don't know if it was a mistake on their part, was that they wanted every penny, right? They wanted to make as much money as they possibly could from all of us, whether it was assistants or lawyers or paralegals. They were squeezing the last single penny. And that's not how we run our firm, right? We believe that people should have living wages. We believe that people should be able to enjoy, you know, from their hard work, the fruits of their labors. But sometimes there is such thing as too much too fast. And I learned that lesson quickly. Sometimes you need to sort of plan for the future, right? And set reasonable expectations. And
Mhm.
I found that big bonuses at the beginning, because we were just so grateful and happy, created that wrong sort of expectation for the next round of reasonable, but still, good bonuses. So, learning to sort of pace myself, right? And it is a marathon, right? And that relationships with our staff are going to be long lasting. And so we need to set up appropriate expectations, right? And so that was a hard lesson for me to learn, right? But it's certainly one that I learned quickly, and not without some scarring. But we did have to have some difficult conversations, right, around
Yeah.
what an appropriate expectation was around holidays, or whatever that compensation was.
Yeah, it sounds like a few lessons kind of rolled into one. Like a lot of leaders, especially when they first enter into leadership, the setting of expectations is one of the most challenging things. And but when we can learn how to do that up front, it makes those hard conversations a lot easier because we've already been as clear as we possibly can in the beginning. So I love that. Where do you find inspiration, or like, do you have experts in leading teams that you follow?
Yeah, I mean, I do find, and I mean, as cheesy as it sounds, right? I do find the inspiration for how to lead comes to me from some of the public figures, like, I'm now embarrassed to say it out loud, but I do listen a lot to Michelle Obama, and when she
Okay.
talks about how she sort of, and there's a lot of talks with her, even leading the house that she led, right? I find strong women like Maya Angelou, and a lot of her interviews there's a lot of wisdom about how to deal with people around you, right? And I do watch a lot of her old interviews. But yeah, I mean, I find those people who can connect in a personal level with
Mhm.
people, right? And people that they may not necessarily connect with every day, because their work affects all of them, right? That's where I have been finding a lot of inspiration lately.
What's a favorite part of your work?
Uh, did you hear that I said leaving? No, but I mean, I think my job is difficult, right? Very few lawyers want to do this type of work, right? Divorce lawyers deal with some of the hardest situations, right? And so for me, it has allowed me to provide for my son a life that's the life that I want for him to have. So I think my favorite part of my job is, as silly as it sounds, being able to disconnect, being able to find time for me, being able to find time to spend with my son. And it looks different every day. I live for to pick up my son every day, 20 minutes before the bell goes, and being in this place at this law firm allows me to do that, right? As an employee at a different law firm, I couldn't leave at 3:20 to go pick up my son. Now I can do that. And so I think I enjoy the freedom that it brings me, even though it does come with a price, right? I leave at 3:30 in the afternoon, but I start checking emails at 4:30 in the morning. So I have found a different ways to balance the work.
Hmm.
Uh, and I do enjoy the work. I mean, I find the law very interesting. I enjoy reading cases. That's one of my hobbies. And I will often my partner will often ask me what I'm doing when I'm desk scrolling through my phone, and I am in fact reading a case that just came out. And so I do find the law interesting. I do find that sort of mixture of rules and people and the things that people do to bend them and break them fascinating, right? And so I really enjoy the intellectual piece of the work that I do.
Yeah. I know it's complicated though, and requires a lot of concentration. So
And
not every
it's the emotion, right? Like the emotional energy that goes into my everyday dealing with other lawyers, dealing with people in distress. The reality is, from the time that I start checking my emails, everybody wants something from me, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm happy to provide it, right? But the complexity of the toll that it takes from you and learning to disconnect and still keeping things under control while running a business, it's not an easy um, concoction to drink.
Yeah, I can imagine. What are you most proud of personally and maybe with the team?
You know what? I am really proud, and I mean, it's strange to say it, but I am really proud of our office. I'm proud of the space. It's strange to see my name on the door. That didn't happen at my last partnership, and it was a decision, a conscious decision by the partnership to keep the branding to what it had always been. And this time we chose to rebrand with our names, and so seeing that on the letterhead, it does give me a little bit of pride, and it was particularly so when my parents came to visit, and my immigrant parents who had a very difficult time adapting to Canada in the 90s, right, and raising three kids, working some very hard jobs, and it was a moment of celebration, right, to see what their efforts have led us to, right? And I do say us because I don't think it's just my success; it is our success. And my parents worked very hard for me to be able to have the education that I have and the ability to you know, work the way that I do. So
Hmm.
yeah,
So it's a little bit their name on the door, not just your name on the door.
it certainly is.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely. And what about for the team? What are you proud of?
Excuse me. You know what? I'm really proud of how they work together. And I mean, I know it's cliche, but the last few weeks have been really heavy on administrative work. Transferring all of our clients from one law firm to the other takes a metric ton of work, right? From banking to the courts to letting lawyers know where we are to we had to redo contracts for every single client and to see people stepping up to help each other to make sure that all of the work is done in the sequence that needs to be done. I was really proud to see people stepping up and helping their friends or their team rather and just like a little ant colony, watching them build this new world where we live, right? And so I do think that that doesn't happen everywhere, and it happened organically. It's not something I certainly didn't ask for it. It's just what happened, you know, with some gently sort of observations from me and my partner, right?
Yeah. So just everybody seeing here's what needs to be done and
Get it
figuring
done.
who's going to do what and getting it done.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. What advice would you give to your younger self when you first took on a leadership role?
I think I would, and again, it's a little bit cliche, but I think I would. There are two lessons that I've learned. Right, the first one is, and I sort of touched on this earlier: cut the line sooner. Right, if the visions don't align, there's no need to beat a dead horse. Right, and so learning to pack it up when it's not working. Right, and two, just to be a little gentler on myself. As much as I can be gentle on the people around me, that is not a luxury that I allow myself, right? And so I often have to remind myself, what will I say to my employees if they were in this spot? And,
Mhm.
it would be go home, you're done for the day. You don't need to keep working, right? Uh, Stop. You don't have to work every weekend. 'Cause as much as I say that, the people around me, don't work every weekend. I certainly do, right? But that is, the way that my days are arranged so that I can spend time with my son. And so when my son is sleeping at 5 in the morning on a Saturday, I can get some work done, right? And when he's awake at 7, we can go for breakfast and do all the things that we need to do. But to be able to take that time off as a lawyer, I need to find that hours in other places, right? So sometimes, though, I do think I need to allow myself to enjoy that cup of coffee in the living room rather than in my office, right? And it's an area of growth for me. So I think that that is certainly something that I would say to my younger self, I suppose. I guess younger little me is be gentle and give yourself the same courtesy that you give others.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The sort of the grace to, you know, give yourself a moment and just chill or whatever moment you need.
Yeah. As lawyers, we're taught that our productivity has to be measured in 6 minute intervals all day, every day. And the reality is, we're not machines, right? And sometimes just allowing ourselves not to account for every 6 minutes of our hours is the grace.
Yeah, well said. There's other professions too that have a lot of time accounting associated with that, and I don't know what their increments are, but it can be really challenging to have to justify all of your time, and so being able to say like, "I took a break. I took a coffee break. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's non-billable, but
Yeah. I stood in line at the grocery store without getting frustrated because it's been 12 minutes, right?
yeah,
It's okay.
yeah." What are you most looking forward to in the rest of 2025 and into 2026?
Well, the I am excited for the young lawyers that are joining us in the next few weeks. I'm excited to begin to spend some time working on our mediation practices, right? My personal mediation practice, which is in its very early stages, but certainly beginning to move towards it being something that we're going to begin to market. And so I am really looking forward to spending some time just growing a mediation practice.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think, the focus with your firm having that mediation as an option, is it something that you then get referrals from other places, or how do you get that business?
Yeah, yeah. And so what usually happens is, and I do this in my own practice, is we will often let clients know what their options are, right? Whether it's litigation or negotiations and what sort of form those negotiations can take. And mediation is one of the ways that we can get to a resolution, right? So what often happens is the lawyers leading the cases will find suitable mediators that we trust and that we would sort of bring this family to. And so most of the work is referred to from other lawyers. But we also do mediations with parties who are not represented by lawyers. So, people would come to our office without lawyers and we would then sit with them and help them to sort of chart out an exit plan, right? Whether it be financial or family dynamics or whatever it is that they need. It doesn't always have to be that the lawyers bring the families. The families often are approaching us, right? And so being a Spanish-speaking lawyer in Calgary, the mediations that I have done are for families who need somebody who can help them in their native language, right? And so that is sort of my niche area right now, but it is growing into, well, we can do them in English as well. So I'm trying to,
Yeah, for sure. And when you bring on new lawyers, whether they be mediators or, for the litigation side, how do you onboard them or get them up to speed quickly? Do you have a process there, or how do you approach
we do, we do, and I think part of that was being a fairly new law firm, we have to have those processes for everyone, right? So initially, it is ensuring that all the IT is set up for them, right? We have a wonderful set of legal assistants who would then set up all of the administrative side. And then from the legal side, it comes down to ensuring that they have an appropriate caseload, right? And so my partner and I are very focused on ensuring that we are doing all of the marketing and advertising and being out in the community. We do talks for different professionals just to sort of create some awareness, right? There's a lot of sort of stumbling places for families and especially new families, right? Or new couples that we believe that there's an awareness piece that needs to be sort of passed on. So that's where a lot of our prenups and cohabitation agreements come in, right? So we do a lot of work with the community to ensure that people are turning their minds to this, especially with, there's a huge wealth transfer happening right now between the retiring generation and the working generation, right? People are inheriting large sums of money. We're seeing parents helping their children buy new places, and providing large down payments, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that down payment is entering, the new relationship, and people are not turning their mind to what the legal implications of that is of
Mm,
that, right? And so we are out there creating awareness with the community, and that in turn is bringing working for new lawyers who are able to help families and new families plan for the future, right? So
mhm.
that's just one of the areas in which we sort of ensure that we have work coming through the doors.
Mm-hmm. Well, that gives a good perspective too for anybody listening who might be considering coming to work for you, what they can expect, what it might be like to start. So that was a good overview. Yeah. Well, thank you, Enrique. Thank you so much for being here. I think this is a really interesting angle on leadership because some of my audience is definitely not in the legal profession. And so it gives us a little eye into what it's like to be in your world. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for having me, and I have enjoyed listening to your leadership podcast myself. And so it's interesting to go from being in your audience to sitting in the hot seats for a little bit.
Well, it's definitely been a pleasure. So thank you so much. We're glad you joined us for Suits and Sneakers. If you want to be an expert guest, look for the link in the show notes. Don't forget to follow or subscribe to be notified of future episodes.